Hello, everyone. My name is Frederick Anseal, and I have the great privilege of being Dean of UNSW Business School. Today, I would like to warmly welcome you, alumni, staff, students, friends, and special guests, to our first Meet the CEO of 2024. Now, I would like to begin by acknowledging the Bidjigal and the Gadigal, the traditional owners of the lands where elders past and present, and their communities who have shared and practiced their teachings over thousands of years. We recognize Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander leadership and contributions, including to business, education, and industry. At UNSW Business School, we feel responsible for shaping the next generation of business leaders in Australia, but also globally. And we take this responsibility very seriously. There is no better indicator for us that we're on track than seeing our alumni making an impact in their industry, in government, or in their community more broadly. I think all our other recognitions and awards are secondary to student career success. But please allow me to highlight some recent milestones for the business school and for the university. In 2022 and 2023, UNSW Business School was named Australia's best business school by the Australian Financial Reviews magazine BOSS. For the 5th consecutive year, UNSW was named Australia's most employable university, and we have more future leaders than any other university, according to the Top 100 Future Leaders Awards. UNSW achieved an impressive position within the top 20 worldwide in the QS World University Rankings 2024. And tomorrow, another outstanding ranking result for the business school will be announced, but I cannot talk about that one just yet. Hang in there. So accolades like these are wonderful. They make us all feel good, but they should not distract us from what we see as our broader societal ambition, that is, helping to improve economic and social prosperity, not only of individual graduates, but of society more broadly. Meet the CEO is the UNSW Business School's premier leadership series, offering ongoing learning beyond graduation and access to contemporary thinking in business. Events like Meet the CEO reaffirm for us the importance of lifelong learning, as no matter how successful one is, there is always a new challenge around the corner. As our special guest today, we are very pleased to welcome Anna Lee, CEO of Flybuys, who will be interviewed by Professor Verity Firth, our Vice President, Societal Impact, Equity and Engagement at UNSW Sydney, and both will be joining us shortly. Thank you very much to those who sent in questions in advance for Anna. We had an overwhelming response, well over 200 questions, so we will do our best to cover as many of the topics you raised in the conversation as it unfolds. There will also be an opportunity to engage with the conversation by sending in your questions to our live Q&A chat function during the event. A note that we are also recording today's discussion, which will be available after the event on the UNSW Business School website and YouTube channel. For accessibility, closed captioning is available, and please turn it on if needed. We encourage you to share the links with your friends and colleagues who may benefit from the insights shared. It is now my pleasure and honor to welcome David Gonski, the Chancellor at UNSW Sydney, to introduce our guest speakers.
Thank you, Frederick. I welcome all of you. I do enjoy our digital Meet the CEOs, as it means we can reach our alumni and friends around the globe. Thank you to each and every one of you for joining us today at this time, wherever you are in the world. Meet the CEO is always a highlight on the UNSW calendar and is still going strong after 20 years. It's been a wonderful platform for lifetime learning and engagement. As Frederick mentioned, Meet the CEO is UNSW Business School's flagship alumni event. Over the past 20 years, we've interviewed industry leaders from some of Australia's most iconic brands, including Qantas and the Commonwealth Bank. We've interviewed premiers and the CEOs of global technology firms, and we've interviewed founders of startups that are destined to become household name brands. The Business School alumni community is a powerful and very active network of 100,000 graduates that stretches across the globe, and if I may say so, one I'm proud to be a member of. We're very proud also that our alumni have accomplished so many matters, and so many of them, like today's special guest, are so willing to give back and share their expertise and help others, not only just part of the alumni, but generally those in the community. Today, we're very privileged to have with us Anna Lee. Anna is Chief Executive Officer at Flybuys, Australia's most loved loyalty program. With over 9 million Australians as members, that constitutes 1/3 of all households in our entire country. With close to 30 years' experience, Anna has managed operations in finance, people and culture, legal, risk and compliance, as well as IT and office management functions. I've spent the whole week trying to work out what she doesn't have experience in. Starting her career in consulting, she has since paved a successful and fast-track career in high-growth corporate environments across Australia, New Zealand, and APAC, in organizations including the iconic Nora, Groupon, Adshel, now called oOh!media, and of course, Flybuys. Anna was named one in RagTrader's Tech 20, the top tech influencers in Australian fashion retail. This was in February 2019, and was the finalist in the Thomson Reuters Accounting Excellence Awards for both CFO of the Year and Finance Team in the year 2015. She's been covered and profiled in many business, retail, and technology publications. Anna's passion for inclusivity and supporting women in business continues with her membership of Chief Executive Women and over the years as brand ambassador for Dress for Success and the CAANZ program. From that, you could deduce that Anna is a chartered accountant. Most importantly for us, however, Anna sits on the Industry Advisory Council for the University of New South Wales School of Accounting, Audit and Taxation. She also speaks regularly to audiences on gender equality, career development, finance, customer advocacy, and retail topics. This afternoon, Anna will be interviewed by our own UNSW professor, Verity Firth. I want to give a little bit of an interesting fact here, which worries me a bit. Anna and Verity both went to the same high school. That actually doesn't worry me at all. But I have since found out that when Anna was at school, the school captain was in fact Verity. We may be ahead, we may see ahead of us some rather disparaging statements, particularly if Anna felt that Verity gave her a detention or something like that, that shouldn't have happened. It is, in my opinion, evidence when you think about Verity's career that she started even at high school with a commitment to public service, and she's continued this to this day. Verity is the Vice President of the Division of Societal Impact, Equity and Engagement at our university. She has over 20 years' experience at the various highest levels of government and education sectors in Australia, and that doesn't even include her time as school captain. Prior to her role at UNSW, Verity was the Pro-Vice Chancellor, Social Justice and Inclusion at UTS. Verity, it's our pleasure to have you here to talk to Anna about her impressive career. And I now ask Anna and Verity to join us in discussion.
Thank you, Chancellor. I'm absolutely thrilled. That was all too kind, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here today leading the Meet the CEO conversation with Anna. I also would like to begin by acknowledging the Bidjigal people, the people whose land I'm currently out on, and also extending that respect to the traditional owners of the land of all of the people who are joining us today online. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for this Meet the CEO with Anna Lee, CEO of Flybuys. And welcome to you too, Anna. It's a real treat to have you here with us today. And I'm really delighted to be able to host this conversation and look forward to unpacking some really great career and leadership insights, which I know you'll be able to provide for us today.
Thank you so much. Such a real pleasure.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So let's get cracking with the questions. And we're going to start at the very beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about your early years? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? David's already talked a little bit about that. And what were you like as a child?
Well, firstly, I would also like to acknowledge the people of the Wurundjeri people. This is where I'm coming from. I'm coming from Melbourne. So wonderful to be here. A real privilege and a pleasure, Verity. So my story starts with a pretty classical migrant story, to be honest. Child of parents who, like all parents, wanted the best for their children, best opportunities. This was the mid-70s. Also at the same time that Australia abolished the White Australia policy, opened the doors to the rest of the world, and in particular gave the opportunity for families like mine to really change the destiny in the course of their lives as well. So Mum and Dad, my brother and I packed our bags and moved to the other side of the world. And my parents didn't speak a word of English, and miraculously, through perseverance and resilience, which probably does have a huge influence on the way that I grew up, managed to carve a really beautiful life despite those challenges. So I landed in Sydney, age of 3. My dad was sponsored as a chef. Wasn't quite as sexy as and glamorous as MasterChef as back then. I think people really back then did jobs that were really just paid the living, and it was just the way that people made money. And so I think the luxury of doing jobs for purpose and fulfillment as they do now really didn't exist. So very, very humble, very frugal upbringing. Weren't really penny pinching per se. Never remember a time that I wasn't able to have access to the essentials, but equally there certainly wasn't some of those luxuries like going to France for ski trips or Amalfi or so on. So, but, really great, and some epic meals, of course, without a doubt. Having a dad as a chef. So I went to the school in North Shore, went to primary school at Neutral Bay, and it was really by sheer luck that I ended up in such a wonderful part of Sydney. It really was such a fabulous place to grow up, had access to beaches, the streets were safe, wonderful neighbours, ended up meeting a really special group of school friends that to sort of become really lifelong friends. And we ended up there because my dad was sponsored by a restaurant that was in Neutral Bay. So that's kind of how we ended up there. Growing up in primary school, very cognizant that I was only one of very few Asian kids. And I was, now reflecting, I was probably quite fortunate that I hadn't really experienced a lot of discrimination or racism, if any. That was probably a bit unusual at the time, being, quite very much the minority. However, you certainly knew that you were different. Nothing is more confronting than opening your lunch boxes and comparing food. Sandwiches versus rice, very, very different. But, by the time I got to high school, which is where our lives crossed, there was a much greater wave of Asian migration. So by then, my year was probably about 30% people from Asian descent. So, and we're talking now the 1980s, very, very much as a result of that migration, really starting to see that real multicultural presence in Australia. So I went to school at North City Girls, which is where we went. Obviously, a fantastic school. I don't know how your memories were, but, you know, just amazing teachers and a real high performance culture with such supportive teachers. And I think back now, and I think I probably took that for granted. I didn't, you know, you only know what you know, right, Verity? Like, you only know the life that you've lived. And I think about how fortunate I was to have teachers that just continued to encourage you to do the best that you can and to, you know, dream big and so on. So I think that really resonated with who I was. At home, my mum very much took the driving role of the upbringing and caring. She was probably the original Tiger mother before that term was even probably invented. Chinese culture is very much centered around these Confucius principles. The family is at the heart of every Chinese person, and the social hierarchy is very much founded on generational hierarchy. So the elders being at the top of the chain, and as you're a child, you are, you know, nothing really, and very much revered as elders. Academic success was highly valued and regarded. So that gives you a bit of a feel of how my upbringing was. It was very much focused on schooling, doing well at school. I was fortunate that I responded well to classrooms. So, but as a child, I was probably as straight as you can imagine. You know, I wasn't, you know, I think about friends' birthday parties and stuff that you couldn't go to because you had to study. So, you know, it wasn't really until I was an adult that I felt like I had a little bit more freedom and liberation to think about who did I want to be. So I certainly was very much channeled to that. And, you know, I think it was a really big contrast with growing up in that type of household, but in a really liberated Western culture. And I think Australia is probably one of the most liberal countries that you can imagine. So a really stark difference, and that kind of really shaped also how I grew up and how my own sort of journey of self-discovery happened as well. You know, by year 12, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but, you know, it sort of dabbled briefly into thinking maybe architecture, but my Tiger mum quickly intervened and made sure that I was steered into something that provided a little bit of opportunities, and we'll get to that. And at the same time, we had a lot of the big six. At the time, there were six, but now there's only big four. But the professional services company come and, you know, make a queue outside the school to try and hustle kind of bright-eyed, innocent Year 12 students to join their trainee program. I was fortunate enough to land one of those roles, and I joined Coopers and Lybrand after as a school leaver in their trainee program. Of course, now that's PwC. And, you know, really just started at the very bottom. I don't think there was a single job that I hadn't done, from filling up paper in the photocopiers to fixing the photocopiers to using dictaphones to document what was in dusty archive boxes. So, you know, you definitely knew that you were the lowest of the ranks. And so that was really humbling as well, and grounding to know that you started your career, you know, very much from the bottom. And then, so I spent 7 years there. I completed my degree at the same time, so worked full-time, completed my degree part-time, of course, at UNSW, the best university in the world, and did my chartered accounting course. Knew I didn't want to stay in professional services, and then I embarked on a career that spanned kind of over 20 to almost 30 years primarily in a finance role, from finance manager to finance director, CFO, in some of the most disruptive and pioneering businesses. When I had the opportunity to join the Iconic as CFO, that was probably one of the most monumental times. You know, really started to think about what I really wanted in my career, and, you know, really joined with that vision of reimagining the way that Australians shop their fashion. We went from, you know, nothing to household name. Here we were, a pure play fashion retailer who was really taking on some of these bigger organisations and department stores that have been around for 100 years, and really not just reimagining the way people shopped, but also raise the bar on customer experience. And I think that was really monumental from my own values perspective, the importance of the customer. So that's kind of an express kind of version. And of course, had the option
to dive a bit deeper now into that. So you've talked a bit about the sort of the influencing factors that really influenced you as a person growing up. And it sounds like what led you into a career in business really was that you almost went straight into a professional role out of school. And I mean, I find that amazing. And again, shows that level of drive that you had. I'm now going to talk a little bit around stepping into the CE role at Flybuys, right? So you came across into Flybuys in 2022, and this was right when the retail landscape was obviously rapidly shifting in response to the post-COVID world. So how did you find that? How did you navigate your first few months in this role during a period of such significant change?
When I had the opportunity to join Flybuys, I mean, it probably was such a daunting prospect. I mean, you always, every time you get a new opportunity, you always secretly in your mind, you're like, oh my God, how can I do this job? So look, it was such a big learning curve, but at the same time, because I had such a strong track record of just being brave and leaning into challenges, I was kind of excited and ready for it as well. It was really interesting. So I obviously had lived and grown up in Sydney all my life. So this role also involved me relocating to Melbourne. And I know we joke a lot about Sydney versus Melbourne. They are quite different cities. And as you live in them, you definitely notice that. I think for me, the very first thing that I noticed was it was certainly a city, and my team were still very much recovering from some of the most, obviously the most intense lockdown that impacted the city and the state. So, it had to be very understanding and empathetic of that. You're trying to influence and drive change and inspire people when people are still getting ready to even get out of their houses. And, I think it was a very traumatic time for everyone. And I think in particular, people in Melbourne and Victoria were very much impacted. So that was kind of the backdrop of coming into Melbourne and the state that we were in. And then I think what I've realised when I came in was it was a business full of people so passionate about the member, and that was absolutely amazing. I think people want to work at Flybuys because they wanted a member experience, and they want to do the right thing for the member. However, one of the things that was very obvious was the business just wasn't arranged in a way where that could actually be delivered. And so one of my biggest opportunities was, how do I help this group of passionate people coordinate themselves together? How do we set priorities and a strategy that really aligns with that? So we have restated what our mission is, and our mission is helping Australians get more of what they value beyond the checkout. And I think that's been something that's helped unify us, because when you're trying to find what the purpose of a business is, you can go all different ways, but ultimately we need to make sure that we ultimately understand that when members become a member of Flybuys, they want to get value, and we need to deliver that. Also reflected on a brand. This year we celebrate 30 years. So it was formed in 1994, and that wasn't really a digital age. So what we also realised was, in that time, technology and customer expectations have changed so dramatically. And there were definitely opportunities in our business to get ahead of that and focus on some really fundamental experiences that we needed to make sure that our members deserved as well. So it's been a very interesting time and a really rewarding and achieving moment and period for us.
Yeah. So what makes was Flybuys one of the earliest loyalty programs? I mean, what
Yes.
makes Flybuys stand out from other loyalty programs?
So our members are always telling us that it is the breadth of the places that you can collect your points, as well as where you can use those points, as being the biggest differentiator, and that is meaningful for us. We want it to be easy. We want it when our members are shopping for all of their things that matter in their daily lives. They can earn points, which then they use across a range of things. And the ones that we get most excited about are, you know, they can range from most essential things, which is in this cost of living. We've got members who are absolutely valuing being able to take a few dollars off their shop because, you know, all our costs are rising. But equally, when there are different stages or life stages of their life, being able to be there in the moments that matter. So that includes when people buy their first house and they want to paint, they can go and use the points to get some paint. Annual family holidays where new memories are being crafted and made. Members can use that for them as well. So all the things that Australians really value in their world, that's what we're here for, and that's what we all turn up to work every day to do.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And is that what gives you your competitive edge? Is that how you continue to excel in what is presumably an increasingly competitive market?
Yeah, that's right. So it is very much the breadth of the range of retail partners and other coalition partners that you can use, and that makes it easy because we don't want people to feel like they are shuffled in a particular way. If it naturally occurs because that is where they naturally shop, that's where we want to be. So I would say that you know, competitive advantage wise, you just need to be where the member is. And if that's where their life is and that's how they're shopping, and we're providing them personalized experiences that are in line with their lifestyle, that's what we're here for.
And presumably at both Iconic and now at Flybuys, you've gained valuable insights into the shifts in brand loyalty and customer behaviour. I imagine that's the bread and butter of your job. So how have those insights influenced and evolved your leadership style?
I feel like, you know, working through the last 30 years, the use of data and insights has really progressed, and certainly in a business, certainly that is primarily digital, and both Iconic and Flybuys are primarily digital businesses. And certainly when I think about my days at the Iconic, being able to use the data and insights to understand our customers better. So you didn't really have an ability to talk to them. You didn't have a shop front, so you couldn't ask them that. So using their behaviours in our on our site or in the mobile app, be able to understand and make decisions that were important for them was amazing. So a great example is how we changed the delivery proposition, and we really were a pioneer on that. 3 hours, you can get your outfit in 3 hours in Sydney. That was just an absolute first for the digital world, and that came through from understanding when the traffic was landing on our site, what members really wanted, and how we inspired them. And people often think, do you really need something so fast? Yeah, well, people do, absolutely. And I think that understanding the customer, and especially that younger customer who really values immediacy and also seamlessness, being able to ensure that experience is phenomenal is such an eye-opening experience. And that's very much influenced the way that I think about leadership at Flybuys, which is, let's start with the member and understand what is important to them. You know, there are some things that we want to make better and make it easy for them to do the things that we want them to do. So make it easy for them to be able to find their offers in the app, to be able to, redeem their points for holidays and so on. It's all of those little things that we need to constantly refine. And often we have innovation, but at the same time, we also need to make some of those really basic functions, just really, really amazing. And that's what we need to focus on.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me, because the whole sort of push and pull between, do I go and buy it now in a shop or do I do it online, is the immediacy, right? Because I need it today, so I'll go and buy it in the shop. But the idea that you can have both the convenience of online plus the immediacy, it's pretty magic for the consumer.
Pretty magic.
Yeah. So in terms of the rise of digital technologies, right, such as AI, how has that influenced Flybuys? And you've obviously always been a bit of a leader in the digital space. It sounds like that's the story you're telling me. So how has the rise of digital technologies and AI influenced Flybuys? And what do you see as the key opportunities for organisations to leverage some of these new technological advancements in today's landscape?
We are still on a journey to make that business, our business, digital first. And, if you recall, 1994 was not a digital world. In the first week, Flybuys was able to have 1 million Australians sign up back in 1994, which is absolutely phenomenal. And that was followed by 1 million pieces of letters that were sent out to Australians with the physical card. So we want to find the right balance to make sure that we are where the members are, and that is, in the palms of their hands with the smartphone. And we need to understand and make sure that that experience is seamless, it's secure, and it's really easy for them. AI, we already have technologies that utilize that. So in our member support area, where a lot of businesses have really started to use AI in terms of helping our members find the answers of any of the questions that they might have around our program and how it works. So chatbots and so on are very much used. I think there's some really basic things that most businesses can use as well in terms of ensuring that report writing and so on is really great. And I think the next frontier for most of our businesses is, how do we ensure that personalization experience is as scalable, as incredible as possible? We're at 9.6 million members at the moment, active members, and we've got to make sure that every single member gets access to the offers that matter to them. And so Verity, if you enjoy buying tuna every week, we want to make sure that you're getting things that are relevant to you based on what you're doing and who you are. And that would be different for David, for example. So that is something that is almost expected by members now. So for us to be able to do that at scale, we know our membership will continue to grow. And in order to do that in a fast way, so that it's relevant, we're serving members at the right time with the right type of offers that is relevant for them. That's every business is there to try and achieve that. So I think the use of AI is certainly going to be very relevant in that circumstance.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, I don't want to run out of time for audience questions, so I've got a couple of more questions I want to ask you, but I might put them at the end so that we can move to the audience questions. But I am going to also do the rapid fire questions as well.
Yes,
so,
sure.
Rapid fire questions. Last night Kmart shop or early morning from Coles?
Oh, definitely Kmart.
Favourite place you've ever travelled to?
Oh, Japan. I've probably been there like 10 times. I think that country is just the epitome of hospitality and efficiency.
I love Japan too. I totally agree with that. Brat girl summer or very demure and very mindful?
Oh, I'd say a bit of both. I think that's a polarizing one, I think, but probably leaning more towards the demure and mindful.
Excellent. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No.
Yeah, no, disgusting. Well, who would you rather sing karaoke with? Taylor Swift or be stuck in traffic with Beyonce?
Oh, Beyonce.
Yeah. So you'd rather
not to say that Tay is amazing. Like both of them amazing, but I think Beyonce is just more. Sasha Fierce thing is probably more me.
She's pretty fantastic. She's pretty fantastic. Okay, so we're going to move to some audience Q&A. So these are questions that have already been submitted by the people who've registered. And then we're also going to have an opportunity for live questions as well. But in terms of the pre-submitted questions, I thought this one was really interesting. A question on wellness. As CEO, you have significant demands on you. How do you keep yourself well? And has that changed over time?
It has absolutely changed over time. I think if you would ask me back in my 20s, I would have just thought that I was invincible. I think you definitely have a time in your life where you just abundance of energy, and then you have a wake-up call and you realize actually there's some really basic fundamental routines and habits that one needs to follow. So my 4 non-negotiables are sleep, eating well and regularly, and exercise and meditation. So I do like to give a bit of a plug. I've got a little device called a Whoop here, and it is a biometric device. It doesn't have a screen or anything. It's not a watch, but it connects with your phone and it tells you, it tracks all your sleep, it tracks your recovery score. So I live by a philosophy of not about time management, but also about energy management, and it gives you a really good I guess it backs your intuition with data, which is totally up my alleyway. Around, if you're feeling tired, what is the actual score? And it will give you a kind of almost like a red, amber, and green score. And if you know that if the data is also confirming how you're feeling, then you know that means that you must prioritize rest and sleep. And it also talks about how much exercise you can also tolerate as well. So it really helps you moderate and manage your energy and your wellness scores. So I think as a leader, you have to be so intentional about how you turn up to anything. Your leadership shadow is so huge, and people will remember and value the interactions that they have with you. So you have to be at your best all the time. And if you know that you're not, because if you had a rough night's sleep or you're just not feeling great, I think it's also up to you to have a responsibility to, if it is an important engagement, to ensure that you've got enough time ahead to prepare and not have a lot of distractions that will consume a lot of energy. Or alternatively, if you're just having a one-on-one with someone, I am not afraid to reschedule as well, because if you're not going to be at your best, people deserve to see Anna at her best. And I think there's a huge amount of responsibility that you have to take for your own self-discipline and how you turn up. So, to some extent, I had to learn the hard way. I think there have certainly been times in my career that I've probably done excessive amount of hours, and that hasn't served me well. And I had to learn the hard way. And so I'm quite obsessed with telling people to learn those habits early.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that is really the key piece of advice. Actually, timetable in that self-care and that exercise, because that's what you need to do. Such good advice. Next question, a pre-submitted question. If you could give emerging leaders one piece of advice, maybe a different one, what would it be, and what would you do differently if you went back to the beginning and started again?
Oh, well, I don't feel like I live a kind of almost like a no regrets life, and that doesn't mean that that's not at all implying arrogance or not thinking that I've done anything wrong. But I think the life that you lived is the life that you lived, and you have to back your decisions and be accountable for them. But certainly there are things that you would look back and say, that was a really important learning. I'd say that some of the advice that, when I get asked that question, I often give is, you just got to be yourself. And I know that sounds so cheesy, but it is actually quite difficult to know what being yourself is. And that requires a journey of self-reflection, and that includes getting feedback. There's a whole host of tools that you can use to really understand and be curious about who you are. And, when I think about my upbringing in such a structured way of a childhood with my parents and the way that they brought me up, and how I then needed to grow up and navigate the world of, corporate Australia, and discover what my values were and who I wanted to be and how I wanted to be a leader. That is a lifelong journey, by the way. I'm still, I'm still evolving what that looks like, because you can't be static, but you have to not be afraid of getting feedback and actually understanding who you want to be. And I think for me, as I grew up in that type of high performance, and when you grow up in an Asian household where it's almost like endless expectations, it can be quite easy to think that that is the way that things should be and the way that you should interact with people. And so in your 20s, you get feedback pretty young. You realize that it's not really going to get you anywhere. So you really have to change and feel that you can be someone different. And that was pretty monumental for me when I realized, I don't actually have to be the person that I've been for the last 20 odd years. I can actually be someone else. But then the pressure is, well, who do you want to be? And I think for me, defining a personal purpose, and my purpose is to have a positive impact on the people around me in the world, so that they can have fulfilling lives, has allowed me to feel centered around how I want to turn up. So if I go back to the other example, if I know that I'm not going to have a positive impact on someone, then I best take some time to think through how I can be. And that's helped me think through what my values and principles are and what's important to me, and therefore can show up who I am every day.
Love that. That's a great answer. And I also think, doesn't it actually gets a bit easier with age too, I think.
It does. I love it. I don't know about you, but I mean, as a woman as well, like you tend to social pressure often makes you feel like, oh, aging is terrible. And I'm like, I love age. Like I love.
Yeah, I do too. I love
it because you just liberated. You are just so much more confident in who you are. You've just earned a lot of stripes, and you've just had a lot of experiences and learnings, and you're just more considered and not reactive.
And I agree, it's about what you're saying. You're comfortable in your own skin too.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is what I really love about getting older.
Don't have to be someone else that you think everyone else wants you to be.
Yeah, spot on. Okay, another question from the audience is about your personal learning. How do you approach staying informed and up to date on emerging trends and market dynamics? So do you have any specific strategy or method that you follow?
Oh, gosh. I think the challenge for keeping up to date is actually going through the minefield of the plethora of information that could be bombarded, because everyone's sending you like, what about this? Have you heard about this? Have you heard about this? So you do have to find a right way of prioritizing. So we do have structured teams and structured processes for understanding and disseminating what is happening. So whether that's what's happening in the landscape, in the market, new trends and so on, we certainly have teams that support that. One thing that's helped me is to be very fast at deciding and digesting whether something needs action now or is a later watch and see. Because I think there is always a real tendency to feel the pressure to be, oh, we need to be first at that, and we need to look at that and be the first, and often with trends and so on, you want to be first enough, but it may not always be wise to be the first mover, because it can be quite inefficient. You just end up making all the mistakes, and often other people can kind of experiment a bit, and you can learn a little bit, and actually that means that you can actually act faster. So I think a lot of it is around prioritizing and being very fast at deciding, is that important or not? And I think when you're focused on your strategic direction, you're very clear on what is most important to your business, then you'll quite easily work through, is this actually something that is important, or is it something that is nice to explore but isn't an immediate concern? Otherwise, you end up being very distracted and easily chasing the new shiny thing, which actually often could be important, but ultimately you've just got to get some of the fundamentals right too.
Yeah, totally agree. So we've also got some questions on leadership that are coming up in the chat. One of them is, what is the most difficult decision you've had to make as a leader? And how did you go about rationalizing the path chosen versus other viable options?
Oh, that is such a tough question.
Yeah.
I would say, I don't know if it was the most tough decision, but I'd say it was probably the most impactful moment was when I had the opportunity to be to move into the COO role at the Iconic. And the reason why that was such a tough one was because I had spent 25 years in a career that was dominated by, finance specialization. So that was quite big, because the moment you change, I mean, everyone sort of says, oh, but you can always go back to do that. And of course you can. And there are many examples where that has successfully happened. But you really do have to make a decision and back yourself and decide that door is kind of closed. That's how I like to think about things. So I think for me is at that moment, it was very tough, because on one hand, there's the comfort zone of and the specialty that you have known for so long. You can really do that role so much and so well, and there was so much opportunity to continue to do some really great things in a CFO role. But to move into a new role that actually nothing that you did for 25 years or so had any relevancy from a technical perspective in this new role is pretty daunting. And that was six or 7 years ago. So quite advanced in your career, and that is pretty monumental. So there were a lot of learnings. I think the ability to be able to know how to ask questions. I mean, I was just intensely curious and just not shy to and also be brave to say at such a senior role to say, I don't have all the answers, which is pretty daunting to say in a room where everyone's looking at you going, don't you have the answer? And it's like, no. And I think that was one of the things that I learned is you don't have to have all the answers. So I think for me, the lesson was to give it a go and back yourself. And that does come back to confidence in your abilities. And of course, that also meant next time I had an opportunity, I felt that I could do it as well.
It's very brave to do that, to sort of change, your content expertise. But I also think it comes down to confidence too. It's about being intellectually confident enough to be able to ask questions and not feel like you have to be the smartest person in the room all the time. Actually, to be confident enough to listen, to learn. I really think that's a huge learning as well.
And also, I mean, there are some universal skills that, whilst it wasn't the technical abilities that you could add, you can definitely learn that. But it was very much about the leadership skills you've earned as well, because I came from, for years that you worked in teams that had the same technical specialization as you. So it's very easy to talk to auditors, accountants, people that spoke your same language. And when you move into operations and all of a sudden you are now leading teams of people who ran the fulfillment center or models, photographers, makeup artists, such a big breadth and diverse backgrounds and expertise. Ultimately, what it really made me focus on is refining my leadership qualities. How do I engage and inspire and motivate people from all different backgrounds, not just people who are chartered accountants?
Yeah, that's right. And actually what it does is it shows you that those generic leadership skills are absolutely translatable across sectors and disciplines. I think that's so true. Another one from the audience, they're getting really into it now. They're really leaning into the leadership questions. Did you always aspire to be in leadership? And at what point in your career did you decide to pursue executive roles? And what influenced that decision?
I knew I wanted to be in business. I don't know if I necessarily translated at an early stage that I wanted to be in leadership. I feel sometimes things happen and you end up in a path. And I often say to people, you don't have to have a defined path or a career. In fact, you know, when I started my career, online shopping and digital world didn't even exist. So you can't even talk to some of the jobs and the roles that I ended up in because those roles simply didn't even exist. What I did enjoy was that coaching and teaching people skills. I really felt that everyone has the potential in them to learn more, to do better and refine. And this whole process of continuous improvement is very much part of who I am. So that helped a lot, I think, particularly 7 years at, you know, in professional services, where it is a very structured environment around feedback and so on. And that allows you to kind of really hone those and practice those skills. I didn't specifically try to chase an executive role. That kind of landed. It was sometimes you are in the right place at the right time. You've obviously demonstrated you have the potential and capabilities, but career sponsors are incredibly important, and I absolutely value having exceptional career sponsors throughout my career, and I can't express enough how important that is to people who want to continue progressing their career. My first executive role was an opportunity that my very first CEO that I worked with gave me, and I never look back. I think that was probably, I'd say, 2 or 3 years earlier than I maybe was ready if it was in any other track. But, you know, he gave me the opportunity, and that was just pretty incredible. And since then, I guess every time that I've been given an opportunity, I've just grabbed it and embraced it. And I don't know if you've ever read a book, Liz Chapman. She has a book called oh God, it's anyway, Impact Players. That's it. And they and she talks about kind of not the job that you want, but the job that needs to get done. And I think that's such a great line, because throughout your career, you don't need to worry about what the job description says. Just go into a business and work out that needs to be done. I don't really care if that's in my job description, but the reality, it's, you know, the way that she describes it is you have an organization chart and you've got these boxes, and it's often the things that sit between boxes that no one does because it's just too hard, or it's kind of intangible. And I think for me, I've always just been someone who's just looked at, okay, I'm looking around, I don't think anyone else is doing this, but it needs to be done, so I'm going to give it a crack. And I think they're quite often the most impactful things that is valued by a business, and I think that's just served me quite well.
Brilliant. Okay, final question. If you could give advice to a younger version of yourself, what would it be?
Stay positive, and because you work it out. So I think we often think about life as being this linear upwards trajectory. And I think that actually creates a lot of challenges for people, because there is this unrealistic measure or yardstick that people are measuring to. Oh, by this age, I need to have done this. And that actually creates a lot of mental health issues and they're just unnecessary and unrealistic expectations. And I think for me is, if I was going to go back, I'd say that there were times where life was very hard, but it always worked out. You will find a way, and there's no defined path that you're following. You're creating your destiny. And I think being able to stay positive and optimistic and weather those times that you might feel like there's a dip in that is the best way, because otherwise you can get sucked into the lows, and the lows actually don't stay for too long. And in fact, any lows that stay for a long time, is part of it is also related to your mindset and how you frame the situation that you're in. So for me, you know, there's certainly been times where it hasn't been always highs, but I always think about, but this will just pass. and I think the Queen said that too. Actually, but in a way, like, we were in the middle of the pandemic as everyone went through that. It was really hard, but we all look back and go, well, we got through it. Wasn't pleasant for everyone, but we got through it, and we have to reflect on how that's changed us and grow as people. But if you keep thinking that everything has to be up every year, it's just unrealistic. But when there are lows, just know that it will pass, and pick yourself up and just keep going.
Totally fantastic advice from Anna. Thank you so much. That's all we have time for today. But you've been so great, so open, honest. It's been a real joy.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, I've had a great time. So now I'd like to welcome Tariro Makwasha. She's going to give the vote of thanks for this afternoon's event. Tariro is an executive leader passionate about driving positive change across public and private sectors. She is the Chief Customer Strategy Officer for the Industry Capability Network and is another valued alumna of UNSW, so many good ones, having completed her executive MBA with us in 2022. She's also a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors and serves on the UNSW Business School Advisory Board. For more than 20 years, Tariro has combined analytical thinking to human-centric and collaborative approaches to tackle complex challenges with a focus on digital transformation and data-driven strategies. She aims to leverage technology and the power of human connection to address pressing societal challenges. Welcome, Tariro.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Tariro Makwasha, and I'm delighted to give the vote of thanks today. Firstly, a heartfelt thank you to Annalie and Verity for such a captivating and insightful conversation. We're deeply grateful for your time and thought-provoking discussion. To acknowledge our gratitude, a donation will be made on your behalf to the UNSW Business School Educational Resource Access Scheme, which supports the inclusion and success of first-year undergraduate business programs at UNSW Sydney. I would also like to extend my thanks to our live stream audience, especially those who submitted questions for Anna. Your engagement added another layer of depth to the conversation. And reflecting on the conversation, what resonated with me most was Anna's reflection on her record for being brave and leaning into challenges, and her courage to make bold decisions while maintaining a deep sense of empathy. It stood out for me as a leadership quality that I'm sure all of us will carry on to our other jobs. It's clear that for Anna, empathy is core to how she navigates her role, balancing customer needs and the well-being of her team. I'll leave you with be intentional and aware of how you show up, because for me, that kept ringing in my head. Lean into who you are and know who you are. Be brave and confident, be curious and willing to learn, as some of the leadership traits that Anna shared with us. As mentioned, the full interview has been recorded and will be available on the UNSW's Business School YouTube channel and website. Please do revisit this insightful discussion when you can. This brings our Meet the CEO Forum to a close. We hope you found the conversation valuable and are leaving with new perspectives to apply in your own leadership journeys. Thank you all for attending, and goodbye.